Hey friends, last week somebody sent me an op-ed piece that asked this question, my paraphrase: is your church an us against the world church or a love your neighbor church? And I got thinking, which of these kind of churches would you really prefer? And more importantly, which is more aligned with God's agenda for His church? And you could make a good biblical case for both. The letter 1 John says very poignantly, do not love the world and the things of the world. And if we're seeking to live out the values, the priorities of the gospel, often we're going to find ourselves at odds with some of the values and priorities of our more secular neighbors. What I think is challenging, though, is that while we're generally pretty attuned to and critical of certain secular values, like say when it comes to sexual morality, we're also pretty blind to the worldliness that's ingrained in ourselves, like maybe an addiction to material comfort or obsession with our kids' activities and achievements. And on the other side, Jesus famously says, for God so loved the world, and that would include our neighbors and our enemies even, right? One of Jesus' other very well-known statements is actually, he's quoting from Leviticus. He says, love your neighbor as yourself. Now, an important question, though, is what's loving your neighbor look like? Is it accepting everything your neighbor believes and does? Does it ever mean confronting your neighbor about some of their ideas and actions? Well, there's some important considerations and qualifications then with either option. But friends, if we got to emphasize one or the other, let's be a love your neighbor kind of church. Let's be known for what we are for, not what we're against. Let's live into the core value that we have that says that the love of Christ compels us to pray for and serve our community in the world. And sometimes that's going to mean loving and serving people with whom we profoundly disagree about really important things. And that isn't easy. But you know what? In today's contentious climate, loving your secular neighbor is a powerful witness to a Savior who was never soft on sin, but who loved hanging around with both religious and non-religious sinners. A Savior who, even from the cross, prayed for the forgiveness of those who nailed him there. Well, friends, thanks for your time today, and let's be a love your neighbor kind of church.